5 royal executions that changed history throughout history. The execution of royalty has sent shockwaves across nations and continents. These dramatic events not only ended lives, but fundamentally altered the course of civilization itself. From medieval betrayals to revolutionary fervor, royal executions have served as turning points that redefined the relationship between rulers and the ruled. Today, we examine 5 royal executions that stunned the world and left lasting impacts on history. These stories reveal how even those who claim divine right to rule were ultimately subject to the judgment of their people and the forces of historical change. Marie Antoinette's execution on October 16, 1793, marked one of the most dramatic moments of the French Revolution. The Austrian-born queen, once the epitome of royal luxury and excess, met her end on the same guillotine that had claimed her husband, King Louis XVI, 9 months earlier. Born an Archduchess of Austria, Marie Antoinette became Queen of France at just 19 years old. Her lavish lifestyle during France's severe economic crisis earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. While she likely never uttered the famous phrase, "Let them eat cake," these words became forever associated with royal indifference to public suffering. The French Revolution transformed the Queen from a symbol of elegance into a prisoner of the state. Revolutionary leaders accused her of treason, conspiracy with foreign powers, and corruption against the French people. Her trial was brief and largely ceremonial. The outcome had been predetermined by revolutionary fervor and public hatred. On her execution day, the 37-year-old former queen appeared aged far beyond her years. Stress had turned her once golden hair completely white. She wore a simple white dress and cap, a stark contrast to her former splendor. Witnesses reported that she maintained remarkable dignity even while climbing the scaffold, accidentally stepping on her executioner's foot and politely apologizing. Marie Antoinette's execution horrified European monarchies and accelerated the coalition wars against revolutionary France. Her death symbolized the complete end of absolute monarchy and divine right, inspiring both republican movements and royalist resistance across Europe. The image of a queen facing the guillotine became an enduring symbol of revolutionary justice and the vulnerability of even the most powerful rulers. Anne Boleyn's execution on May 19, 1536, shocked Tudor England and reverberated throughout Europe. The second wife of Henry VIII, whose marriage had sparked England's dramatic break with Rome, was beheaded on charges that historians continue to debate today. Anne Boleyn had captivated Henry VIII so completely that he defied the Pope, divorced his first wife Catherine of Aragon, and established the Church of England specifically to marry her. Their tumultuous relationship had already produced one of history's greatest monarchs, the future Elizabeth. But Henry desperately needed a male heir to secure his dynasty. When Anne failed to produce a surviving son and Henry's attention turned to Jane Seymour, the king required a legal way to end their marriage. Accusations of adultery, incest with her brother George, and high treason were swiftly manufactured against her. The speed of her downfall was breathtaking. She went from queen to condemned prisoner in just 17 days. Anne Boleyn's execution was unique among English royal executions. She was beheaded with a sword rather than an axe. The execution carried out by a skilled swordsman brought specially from France. Her final speech maintained her innocence, while carefully avoiding any direct criticism of the king. Historical records indicate she said, "I pray God save the king and send him long to reign over you, for a gentler nor a more merciful prince was there never." Anne Boleyn's execution established a dangerous precedent for Henry's subsequent treatment of wives and contributed significantly to England's religious transformation. Ironically, it ensured that her daughter Elizabeth would eventually become one of England's greatest monarchs. The execution also demonstrated the precarious reality of royal marriage, that queens were ultimately dispensable when they failed to serve the king's political and dynastic needs. The execution of King Charles I on January 30, 1649, sent unprecedented shockwaves throughout the monarchical world. For the first time in English history, a reigning king was publicly tried and executed by his own subjects, fundamentally challenging the ancient concept of divine right to rule. Charles I's reign was characterized by constant conflict with Parliament over taxation, religious policy, and royal prerogatives. His unwavering belief in absolute monarchy and repeated attempts to rule without Parliament ultimately led to civil war. The English Civil War, lasting from 1642 to 1651, pitted royalists against parliamentarians in a bloody conflict that would permanently reshape British government. After losing the war, Charles was captured and put on trial for high treason against the English people. He steadfastly refused to recognize the court's authority, maintaining that a divinely appointed king could not be judged by his subjects. This defiance only strengthened Parliament's resolve to make a definitive example of him. On a cold January morning, Charles I walked calmly to his execution at Whitehall Palace. He wore 2 shirts to prevent shivering, which might have been mistaken for fear by the watching crowds. In his final speech, he maintained his innocence and insisted on his divine appointment as king. The execution was carried out with a single, decisive blow of the axe, witnessed by thousands of stunned spectators who had never imagined they would see their king die by public execution. Charles I's execution abolished the English monarchy and established the Commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell. It inspired republican movements across Europe while horrifying other monarchs who viewed it as an attack on the natural order of society. The event proved definitively that kings were not untouchable and could be held accountable by their people, a revolutionary concept that would echo through subsequent political upheavals worldwide. The secret execution of Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family on July 17, 1918, in Ekaterinburg, remains one of history's most shocking royal murders. Unlike the public executions that served as political theater, this brutal killing was deliberately hidden from the world for decades. Nicholas II inherited a vast but deeply troubled Russian empire in 1894. His reign was marked by military defeats, severe economic problems, and growing revolutionary sentiment throughout Russian society. The disastrous Russo-Japanese War and Russia's catastrophic involvement in World War I further weakened his position and destroyed public confidence in his leadership. The 1917 revolution forced his abdication, ending 300 years of Romanov rule over Russia. Initially promised safe passage out of Russia, the imperial family was instead moved repeatedly before being imprisoned in the Ipatiev house in Ekaterinburg. As the Russian Civil War intensified and White Army forces approached the city, local Bolshevik leaders decided the family's ultimate fate. In the early hours of July 17, 1918, the family was awakened and told they were being moved again for their safety. Instead, they were led to the basement where Bolshevik executioners opened fire without warning. The Tsar, Tsarina Alexandra, their 5 children, including 13-year-old Alexei and 17-year-old Anastasia, and 4 loyal servants were all killed in the brutal attack. Their bodies were secretly buried, and the Soviet government denied any knowledge of their fate for decades. The Romanov massacre marked the definitive end of Imperial Russia and shocked the world's remaining monarchies. It demonstrated the ruthless efficiency of revolutionary violence and the complete rejection of traditional royal legitimacy. The mystery surrounding their deaths spawned numerous impostors and legends, while their canonization by the Russian Orthodox Church in 2000 transformed them into martyrs of royal persecution. Lady Jane Grey's execution on February 12, 1554, was perhaps the most tragic of all royal executions. At just 16 years old, she was beheaded for a treason she never chose to commit, becoming an innocent pawn in the dangerous political machinations of Tudor England. Lady Jane Grey was a brilliant, exceptionally well-educated young woman with a legitimate but distant claim to the English throne. When the dying Edward VI was persuaded to bypass his half-sisters Mary and Elizabeth in favor of Jane to keep England Protestant, she reluctantly accepted the crown she had never wanted and never sought. Her reign lasted only 9 days before Mary Tudor successfully claimed the throne, with overwhelming popular support. Jane immediately surrendered and was imprisoned in the Tower of London. Initially, Mary was inclined to spare her young cousin, recognizing Jane as a victim of others' ambitions rather than a genuine conspirator against the crown. Jane's fate was sealed by Sir Thomas Wyatt's rebellion against Mary's planned marriage to Philip II of Spain. Though Jane had absolutely nothing to do with the uprising, her father's involvement and her continued existence as a potential rallying point for Protestant resistance convinced Mary that Jane was too dangerous to remain alive. On the morning of her execution, Jane watched from her prison window as her husband, Guildford Dudley, was beheaded on Tower Hill. Hours later, she walked with remarkable composure to her own execution on Tower Green. Her final speech was extraordinary for its dignity and faith. She asked the executioner to dispatch me quickly, and after placing her head on the block, died with a single stroke of the axe. Lady Jane Grey's execution became a powerful symbol of innocent victimhood and the brutal realities of Tudor politics. Her death highlighted how royal blood could be both a blessing and a deadly curse, making individuals targets in power struggles they never initiated or desired to join. These 5 royal executions reveal common themes that transcend their specific historical contexts. They demonstrate how the ultimate punishment could eliminate political threats, end entire dynastic lines, and send powerful messages about the changing nature of power itself. Each execution shocked the world differently, some through their public spectacle, others through their secretive brutality. They marked crucial turning points in history, from the end of absolute monarchy to the rise of republican ideals. Most importantly, they remind us that throughout history, royal blood provided no ultimate protection against the changing tides of political fortune and popular will. Egyptian pharaohs were considered married to the goddesses of Egypt. Female pharaohs navigated this by emphasizing their roles as divine mothers and protectors of the realm. The forgotten world of Egypt's female pharaohs teaches us profound lessons about power, gender, and the deliberate construction of historical narratives. For over 3,000 years, women regularly ruled one of history's most powerful civilizations as absolute monarchs, military leaders, and living goddesses. They built monuments that still inspire awe, led armies to victory, and governed millions of subjects with divine authority. These remarkable women were systematically erased from history, not because they failed as rulers, but because they succeeded too well. Their achievements threatened male-dominated power structures that preferred to pretend women had never wielded such authority. Every time we discover another forgotten female pharaoh, we're reminded that women's exclusion from power hasn't been natural or inevitable. It's been artificial and deliberately constructed. These ancient queens prove that women have always been capable of absolute leadership. During their reigns, Egypt experienced some of its greatest periods of prosperity, artistic achievement, and territorial expansion. Their success demonstrates that diverse leadership strengthens rather than weakens civilizations. Egypt's female pharaohs didn't just rule, they ruled extraordinarily well. Their stories were hidden, but their achievements were real. These forgotten queens remind us that women have always been capable of absolute power. We just haven't always been allowed to remember them. Today, we choose to remember, honor, and learn from the remarkable women who ruled as gods in ancient Egypt.